Welcome to the Undiscovered Gems podcast, hosted by NBA legend and business powerhouse Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds.
Hello, how's everybody doing today? I am Charles D. Smith. Welcome to Undiscovered Gems. Today we have a life coach, and her name is Mehta. Mehta has been a TEDx expert speaker. She's a national best-selling author. She also, as I mentioned from the start, is a life coach, and she coaches teens and adults in different areas, and she's also our professional of the year. Welcome, Mehta, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here today.
Michelle, anyone that has the title of their company with their first and last name, they must be very bossy or good at what they do. So we're going to get into that and find out what makes you uniquely different as a life coach, kind of comparable to other life coaches out there. We want to dig into that. But first, we got to find out about your background. How did you get into it? What makes you a great life coach?
First of all, there's careers that you get to choose. Suppose you go for school and you're like, I want to be the best engineer that I can be, and you figure out a path. Others, someone comes knocking on your door, metaphorically, and says, have you thought about a career in coaching? And that's how my journey started. I had no idea that the terminology life coaching even existed about a decade ago, until I was volunteering at a nonprofit event. And one of the volunteers said, Michelle, what are you passionate about? I said, I want to help people for the right reasons. And he said, have you ever thought about becoming a life coach? And I thought coach meaning PE teacher. I'm like, you want me to go back to school to teach people sports? He goes, no, it's a whole different career. My daughter's actually been doing it for a decade now, and I think you should get in touch with her. And I got in touch with her, and she said, take this one course. It's either going to make you or break you. And Charles, let me tell you, it has not only made me, but it has designed my entire life around it. And I am incredibly passionate about helping people for the right reasons. And I love two things. One, talking to people, and being on the phone all the time. So why not get paid for it? So that's how I discovered life coaching, and it has actually discovered me as well. So I've been doing it for about a decade, and I thoroughly love it.
Well, one thing about your title, you caught my attention. You are considered a confidence expert. Tell us about that. What is that all about?
Well, one of the things in what I've discovered is seeking confidence. So confidence is something that you are born with in some cases. In some cases, you have to learn that trait and you become really good at it. One of the things that happened to me was when I was 25 years old, I was laid off twice within a span of 6 months. So as you can imagine, in the middle of my 20s, when you're supposed to launch yourself into an amazing career, I lost myself falling and failing. And I had lost all kinds of ability to apply again, fix my resume again. So my confidence level was obviously zero. And you can't take that when you're applying for a new job. And so I started researching about what does it take to become confident in something. And after a few Google searches, I discovered that you have to have a goal. Have a goal, achieve that goal. And then once you do that, you immediately get that confidence. And so I started living my life like that in 2013. And I strictly remember this because I used to never be a reader. I used to never enjoy reading books for fun. However, somehow, somewhere in my college career, I ended up buying 12 personal development books just out of nowhere. I walked into Barnes & Noble and just picked up 12 bestsellers. And I never read them. But in 2013, I said, you know what? I'm going to do something for myself. And I started reading them one by one. I set a small goal, one book a month. And Charles, I achieved it. And I started setting another goal and I achieved it. And I say, you know what? I'm the type of person that set something and completes it, which a lot of people start on many things and they have a hard time completing it. And so that's where I decided, like, okay, with my track record, once I say something, it gets done. And so I tell people, you tell me to do something, consider it done. And they go, how do you have that so much confidence in saying it? Because I believe in that and I know what's going to happen. And that's why I am an author of 8 books. 7 are collaborative. 1 is my solo book. And that's how also I became a TEDx speaker during this thing called the pandemic, right? So when things and people were losing hope, that's when I took that hope and I flew.
Hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of starts for people during the pandemic. Give me 1 second here. I don't know why my screen went. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No
Screen went
problem.
black for some reason. Sorry about that. Um, During the pandemic, Michelle, a lot of people got their starts. They've transitioned, they transformed, they did a lot during and after the pandemic. When you started your career in life coaching, what specific clients do you focus in on that best suits your abilities, your gifts?
Absolutely. So when in 2019, this was pre-pandemic, obviously, I went to a middle school, my former middle school where I graduated from, and I went in front of 100 kids on career day. And I spoke about how I found this career called life coaching. And Charles, I asked 100 kids that day between the ages of 11 to 14, how many of you have evil voices inside of your head? Every single hand went up and my heart sank because the voices that these kids were hearing inside their heads were, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm
Oh, I
overweight. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy enough. And I don't matter. I'm stupid. I'm an idiot. And in my mind, I'm thinking, they're in middle school. In high school, it only gets worse, unfortunately, when you have these types of voices. And
yeah.
that's when I transitioned from working with professionals to working with teenagers. Then the pandemic hit. And the voices that were coming from were external voices. They were coming from their peers and their teachers. And all of a sudden, these kids were now homeschooled, AKA online schooling. So there was nobody else telling them, or there was no competition than themselves, because they would just be on the
Mm,
computer and then sign off. And so I transitioned again to working with adults because kids were telling me, Michelle, we don't do Zoom anymore. We only do in person. And I said, okay, that's really interesting. And sometimes the parents said, my kid needs support. But the kid says,
mm-hmm.
I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't need the support. But working with professionals, I found out that there's this thing called burnout, which is on the rise. According to Deloitte, 77% of professionals experience burnout, and that number is on the rise every single year. And that is a huge number. And that burnout is happening since the pandemic because people were going to an office, then they started working from home. Now they're going back into an office, and so that work life balance is a little shifted. And
Mm-hmm.
burnout starts with not having healthy boundaries, not prioritizing what's important to them.
Right. Michelle, what is burnout? I mean, it's a matter of perspective per person. But based on you being a life coach and you've dealt with many people, what is your definition of it? When is somebody burnt out?
When they're feeling frustrated, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they have no sense of direction. What used to fuel their fire is now diminishing that fire. Their lack of passion is present. So when I experienced burnout was when I was transitioning between working with teenagers to working with adults. At that time I experienced burnout in my own life coaching career because I wanted to help them so bad. I really wanted to support them. And I knew the flaws that they were having because I could see their blind spots. And they were not ready to receive the gifts that I was offering. At the same time, when I was working in corporate and having people tell me, we're laying you off today because you're too nice, or your customer service score from your previous employer is actually hindering our performance at our new company,
Mm,
or the fact that we're going to hire you today as an internal coach. 4 hours later, somebody from a higher department says, Michelle, you have 1 hour to give away your laptop and your iPad as you're terminated from your position altogether and from this company. And at that point, you realize, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? What did I do? And you take the blame for yourself. And you realize that the people around you are the ones that are most affected, your family, your loved ones, because you're snappy, you're agitated, you're frustrated. So you take that all out on them. And then relationships, instead of making them, you're breaking them. And it's of no fault of your own, but you're internally so miserable because you want to do something, but it's out of your control. And many times companies are now telling people like, hey, take some time off. We have programs that you could take short-term disability. Mental health is important. And a lot of people still have that stigma that says, oh, if I discuss my mental health means something is wrong with me. I'm crazy. Only crazy people have mental health issues. But we have so many role models in our lives. Simone Biles took a step away from the Olympics to focus on her mental health, because if we don't have that ability to think from our mind, we don't have that compassion and that passion in our heart, you're basically walking around like a zombie. And instead of bringing people closer to you, you're actually pushing people away, and they don't realize that's happening.
Yeah, no, I can agree. Do you ever, in your dealing with clients that are burnt out, and let me give you an analogy before I ask you the question. It's like somebody who's never really exercised or gone to the gym, right? And they've gone their whole life, never really did it. But when they do go to the gym, they feel pain in their muscles, and they associate that as it's too hard because they never felt it before and they want to quit. So I would say that it's a matter of perspective. They think they can't do it, but that's actually a good thing. So when somebody experiences burnout and they haven't had the ability to push themselves to work as hard mentally and physically, do you give them more? Do you, or do you, how do you deal with that?
So in that situation, I just say, let's take a deep breath, because sometimes people forget to breathe, that deep belly breath. And I tell them, let's take a deep breath. And by putting their one hand on their heart and one hand on their stomach, and I tell them to inhale and exhale, I make them do that 3 times. And I say, how do you feel now? And then they feel a little bit better, but that pressure from the work or the pressure from the family is still present. I said, what would you like to focus on today? What is the one thing that you need to get done? What is the
Mm,
one thing that has to get done? Prioritizing. And then they tell me the answer. I really have this tight deadline. I need to get that completed, or I really need to focus on that. I said, just focus on the one thing in front of you. Because if you're focusing on too many things and creating what if scenarios, what if it fails, what if it doesn't work, what you're creating anxiety, because that is future focused. And if you think about, oh, well, I didn't have to go to the gym 10 years ago. Why do I have to go now? I was fine 10 years ago. I'm better now. And we compare from the past performance to the present performance. And now you're in a state of depression. And so it's
sure.
focusing on the present moment, the right here, right now. And by breathing and doing that deep belly breath, you bring your attention back to what's in front of you. And when
Mm,
you do that, you focus on, if you're making a meal, just focus on the meal. If you're having the meal, focus on having the meal. If you're sending out an email, focus on the email that you're sending out. Don't think about the email that's coming in. Focus on the one that you're present right now. And just by focusing on your mind and bringing that awareness, automatically a lot of the chatter goes away. And
mm,
it's a prioritize. Sometimes there's just, I have so many back-to-back meetings, I don't even have time to eat. Well, say yes to food, right? Ask if they can delay the meeting by a few minutes so that you can get a bite to eat. Get in a
sure.
habit of stepping away from the desk. I mean, there's a lot of areas that we can go into this. This is like going down a rabbit hole, right? Where there's so
Right,
many options.
right.
But it's just focusing on being present and setting yourself first. What happens in burnout is they put everybody else in front of them. And that's why in one of the books that I've written, it's called Friday, the New Monday, where you set your work week to begin on Friday instead of Monday. And you take the Friday to celebrate how your week went. You take the weekend to recharge and reset. So by Monday morning, the email doesn't wake you up. You wake up and there's an email waiting for you.
Nice. Well, today's Friday, so I guess I'll celebrate after this call
There
my
you go.
accomplishment during the week. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh, Let me
absolutely.
ask you, how much does social media play in you dealing with adults too? I was going to say teenagers, but both, because uh, you mentioned these thoughts, these bad thoughts that the teenagers have. And my teen boys are now young adults, but I went through that. And it always amazed me that uh, social media, something said on social media can really wreck their day and put them in a funky mood with people they don't even know. Did you deal with those types of things with the teens?
Absolutely. So it's really interesting you say that. I get parents of teenage girls telling me my daughter spends too much time on Instagram and TikTok. Do you have a way to eliminate that? I have parents of teenage boys tell me they spend way too much time on video games. Do you have a way to eliminate that? And I say the answer is yes to both of those scenarios. Get curious. Who are they following? What are they watching? Because I remember in my 20s, a lot of my friends were getting married, then, getting engaged, getting married, having the kids. And I was obviously not in that situation at that time. I was figuring out my career at that time. That was not a priority for me. However, a lot of my friends were getting depressed for that reason. And I said, "What are
Mm,
you following and who are you following?" Because on my news feed, I'm getting nothing but inspiration and motivational quotes. So for me, I'm getting inspired by my content. I'm not getting depressed or having anxiety around it. So it's just having that shift of who are you following and what are you following them for? And be intentional about your social media time. Set your timer. I have timers on my phone that goes off, maximum 15 minutes across all social media platforms. Obviously, I can reset that time if I want to, but it gives me that awareness of, okay, 15 minutes across Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and TikTok. That's very little time I get to spend,
mm-hmm.
right? So having those boundaries, it come back to boundaries. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? When it comes to
Right.
parents of video games, play with them, get involved, figure out why they're choosing this game. How does this game work? How does it make them feel? Ask them the who, what, when, where, and how questions. Stay away from the why are you playing so many hours? Why are you playing this game? This game is so, XYZ, dumb, playing stupid, not exciting. And like, what are you doing? Instead, get curious. How does this game make you feel? How did you choose this game? How does this game work? Can you teach me? So that way you are also spending time with them and you're learning the psychology around why they're playing this game. And also, who are some of their favorite TikTok users that you're following? Who are your favorite Instagram followers? Follow the same content they're following as well. That way
Sure.
you can have a discussion about it.
Right. Or it was sad that the hurricanes hit North Carolina, but one bright spot that came out of it, all the kids are out in the streets playing because they have no electricity. So
Yes,
they're now playing physical games. They're in the street doing hopscotch and all these things from yesteryear. So I thought that was interesting. But
definitely.
the adults that you're dealing with as a life coach, adults like you just mentioned, adults are always transitioning, or they put themselves in a position where they didn't it's unexpected and now they have to transition. Like you mentioned,
Right.
you got laid off twice, or fired twice, and it forced you to transition. How do you deal with those clients that have to transition because something transpired and they're no longer in the position that they had and they're not going to get it back?
So I give them a hypothetical scenario. If fairy godmother came and visited you and gave you a magic wand and you had to design your dream life, what would it be like? What would you like to do with this new time that you have now? What is the reason why you are transitioning? Sometimes it's forced. Sometimes it's because you just want a new change. What does that change look like? And those are the types of questions I ask because they have the answers within them. There's a reason
Mm,
why doors are closing and opening for us. Right there, I believe in a divine power. And there was a reason why I got hired and fired on the same day because that started my coaching business for a reason. So I did not know
yes.
that at the time, but then, hindsight 2020, I was able to discover that, right? So having that awareness of being okay with the information that's been given to you and what is the next step. And that's why with every client that I do, I tell them we focus on 5 areas of your life that you want to enhance. And what are those goals? You said you didn't have time to travel. Now that you're in a transition period, can we put travel back into your schedule again? You said you didn't have time for X. Can we put that X back into your schedule? Right?
Hmm.
How can we revamp you to be the best version of your life? Because sometimes we feel like we're being controlled, like we're puppets. And I tell them to look above and beyond, left, right, center, and say, are there strings attached to you? And they're like, no. I said, then you have the opportunity to change any second, and the choice is
Absolutely.
yours.
Absolutely. You mentioned divine power. How much does faith play into your coaching? Because people want it now, and sometimes it takes a little longer,
Right.
and they get what they want, but it sometimes not in their own time. And how much does faith play into your coaching?
I am extremely faith based. I come from a Hindu background. So I have a meditation practice that I do. And I'm also part of a Buddhist community called Soka Gakkai International, SGI. And so that definitely keeps me grounded. It allows me to face my own fears as well because I am a human at the end of the day. And so
Right.
keeping that faith involved and letting me know that, you know what, I'm here serving for the best resource. I'm here serving as a vessel for them to guide them through their own journey because some of these clients are not necessarily operating on a 10 on 10. There may
Mhm.
be at a 5 on 10. So helping them hold the space and let them process their emotions, and that gives me the faith that not only I can support them, but they can also support themselves because it does take two to tango.
Right. Right. Well, give us one or two of your toughest experiences in your life where you had to overcome, because I find that with life coaches, their experiences matter. And so share with us one or two of your toughest times that you had to overcome and how you got through it.
Yeah, one of them was I was in a very beautiful, strong organization. It was a bank, one of the largest banks in North America, specifically United States. And we were told to, the moment we unlocked the door as a personal banker, we were told our goal was 2 and 8, two checking accounts every single day, and 8 banking products every single day. And that was
Wow.
our daily goal. So our bank was open 6 days a week. That means 6 days of the week we were told our goal was that.
Wow.
Charles, to meet that quota, and you had to meet that quota to get promoted. That was their scheme. And as a personal banker, and I also had my California life and health insurance license because I used to work for an insurance company when I was in college. So with that knowledge, working at a bank, I was in a very soul sucking environment.
Yes.
And it killed me because as an insurance agent, we tell our clients, you take your paycheck, go to the bank, pay all your expenses, whatever's left over, we will then invest in other products and services such as annuities, life insurance, 401k, whatever we need. And here at that bank, I was messing it up because all these accounts had fees. Clients didn't even know their accounts had fees. There were $30 fees, $5 fees, $15 fees, 20. So instead of being an account opening specialist, I rebranded my title as the account closing specialist because every single day I was closing more accounts than I was opening them.
Wow.
Not to mention, I went through 8 brand managers in the span of 8 months.
High
And that
turnover.
alone is very challenging at the age of 22 when you're starting your career. Getting out of college, you think, the world is your oyster, you're going to create it. And the misery that I had because I knew I was doing something wrong. And my family of 4 had 24 bank accounts under their name.
Wow.
And every single week we were getting a debit card in the mail for an account that they had no idea was being opened. And
Wow.
that shattered me like there was no tomorrow. And that took about 6 months for me to come out of that because it was so traumatic in that way of what am I doing? I'm helping people, but the system is not my
Yeah.
fault. And I thought it was my fault until I
Right.
realized it was the company's corporate values that were not in alignment with me.
Right. And that
And
was your
then
first job.
that was my first job. Yeah. That was
Wow.
my very first job. And then the next job that I got fired again from training from a new position because of my customer service skill set that I had from the previous job. And they wouldn't even promote me because they didn't want me to lose the customer service rating that I had brought to the branch. They said, Michelle, we can't let you leave this branch, because if you leave, then our customer service score set is going to go below, because you have the highest customer service skill set. And that became a hindrance for my next job. And so, as you can imagine, you're starting a brand new chapter, you're all this excitement, and it just comes crumbling down like a million pieces.
Right.
And you're so young in your life, you're like, what am I supposed to do? You look everywhere around you, the comparisonitis kicks in. All your friends are, working at Fortune 500 companies, making the six figures. And here you can't even handle the basics, right?
What did you do?
So then I decided that, you know what, I'm going to take matter in my own hands, and I'm going to go and seek therapy and counseling. And as an Indian woman, we don't do that. We reach out to our uncles and aunts and family and friends, because they know you better than anybody else knows you. And I told my parents, and I said, I'm looking for an unbiased, non-judgmental approach. And unfortunately, you and our family are not qualified to give that.
Right.
And they were like, what? I was like, yeah, because I want unbiased and non-judgmental. And because you love me so much and you care about me so much, you're going to come with your own biases and judgment. And so I don't need that at the moment. And through counseling, I discovered my own passion of leadership and positivity and confidence, because I knew I had to take the matter in my own hands. And I love Mahatma Gandhi's quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I truly abide by that.
Right. That's awesome. Awesome story. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure the audience can identify with that in so many different ways, because change is always good if you approach it the right way and you get the results you want in the long run. And I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that. Well, we're slowly coming to a close here. Time has passed very quickly, Michelle. Why don't you kind of wrap it up and give the audience an idea of what you think they should do when it comes to life coaching and transitioning. For a lot of them, and we're always transitioning, so there are people listening that are transitioning. What advice would you give them?
Number one, don't do this journey alone. Reach out for support. When you reach out for support, you will get there a lot faster. The only reason why I became a TEDx speaker and a conference expert and a best-selling author, because I worked with the experts, I worked with coaches, I hired them, and it propelled my journey a lot faster than when you don't. So reach out for support. Seeking support is actually a great sounding board. So you're not alone. And coaches are trained to follow you side by side. We're trained to dance in the moment with you. And you have the answers inside you. It's our job to bring them out to the surface. So don't be afraid.
Michelle, great interview. Thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom. I'm sure there's many people that have been blessed by hearing your story, your abilities, your professionalism, and how you handle your career. Thanks for being on the show, and I hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure and honor.
All right, very good. And thank you all for watching Undiscovered Gems, and we'll be right back with another show.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Gems with our host, Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds. Brought to you by Pods Entertainment Group.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.